6 years ago, I found a boy on the street, silent and wary of everything around him. Yet he followed my every command. He became Ethan, my shadow. Growing up, he was the sharpest weapon in my hand and the strongest shield before me. He was the only person I could trust with my entire being. I loved him, but all he offered in return was loyalty. When I finally secured the family's legacy, I took the watch from his wrist, a symbol of his service. I told him he was free now, that he should leave me. He didn't argue, only looked at me with those calm eyes and asked if I no longer needed him. I forced the word out, yes. He nodded. The next second, a blade flashed, and he cleanly plunged it into his own chest. I couldn't stop him. The world went black. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the hardest year of the campaign. Ethan was kneeling before me, silent as ever. But now, a colored bar hovered above his head. I reached out, my hand accidentally brushing against his cheek. The bar instantly turned a soft pink. A long silence stretched. It seemed I had made a terrible mistake for a very long time. Julian stared at the man kneeling before him. He was in the middle of a report, his voice a low, steady monotone. The bureau, he was saying. Julian extended a hand, pressing it flat against Ethan's cheek. The report stopped abruptly. A flicker of surprise crossed Ethan's dark eyes as he questioned, "Sir?" Julian ignored him, pulling his hand back. The pink bar above Ethan's head faded slightly. He pressed his hand to Ethan's cheek again, and the vibrant color returned. He moved his hand, resting it on Ethan's shoulder, then his arm, and finally, he pressed his palm flat against his chest, the very spot where the knife had pierced him. Ethan's breath hitched, but he remained perfectly still, a statue carved from loyalty. Julian felt the strong, steady beat of his heart beneath his hand. He was alive. It was real. That was good. So good. He glanced up again at the pink bar, which seemed to deepen in color, contrasting sharply with the placid, unchanging expression on Ethan's face. Julian slowly absorbed the dissonant reality of it all. He had been given a second chance, and with it, a strange new sight. The image of Ethan's lifeless body was still seared into his memory. A wound so profound it felt like a physical ache in his own chest. Only the rhythmic thump of the living heart under his palm could soothe it. He finally found his voice, commanding sharply as he held out his hand, "Give me your knife." Ethan paused for a fraction of a second before producing the weapon. A blur of motion, and its cold weight was in Julian's hand. He never hesitated. Julian gripped the handle of the blade that had taken Ethan's life, resolving to throw it into the river later. He tucked the weapon away and saw that the bar above Ethan's head had turned a clear, translucent color. He pushed aside his curiosity and adopted a serious tone, asking what he had been saying. Ethan immediately continued his report, explaining that the Bureau had taken over the case of Coleman Jr.'s death. He added that since the younger Coleman had died of an overdose at a private club, it was not an honorable death, and the family was trying to suppress the details, likely to pass it off as something else. He offered to leak the true cause of death that night if Julian thought it best. Julian gave a non-committal hum. He'd lived through this once already. Coleman Jr. had died from a potent designer drug, a drug that Julian's older brother, Ronan, was secretly trafficking. That discovery had been the key to toppling him. Last time, he had meticulously planned every step to seize control of the family's political empire, his hands stained with the fallout. He had won, but he hadn't truly wanted the power itself. It was just that, at the time, he had nothing else to live for. Now he did. So even with the advantage of knowing what was to come, He felt no desire for the fight. Ethan remained kneeling, awaiting his orders. Julian moved to the edge of his bed and sat down, beckoning to him. Ethan rose and came to him without a word. He was always so obedient, so compliant. Julian knew the man was ruthless, capable of eliminating a child or an old woman without a flicker of emotion if ordered. He had even been ruthlessly efficient with his own life. It was this absolute devotion, reserved only for him, that had drawn Julian in so deeply. He had thought it was only loyalty. Now he knew better, and knowing, he would not let history repeat itself. He looked at Ethan's stoic face and a slow smile spread across his lips. He told him to let the Coleman affair go. Ronan could clean up his own mess. He had a different task in mind now. Ethan's reply was a model of deference, that he would do whatever his principal commanded. Julian's smile widened. He stretched out a hand and said languidly, "Help me take off my clothes. Then hold me. I'm going to kiss you." For the first time, Ethan did not respond to a command. He remained kneeling, his body rigid, a crack appearing in his perpetually composed facade. He asked if he had done something wrong, if Julian was angry with him. He lowered his head, and the bar above it began to shift to a grim, sullen gray. Julian froze. Had he misread everything? If pink didn't mean affection, what did it mean? He carefully withdrew his arm while Ethan's head was still bowed and decided to probe further, asking why he thought he was angry. Ethan's answer was swift and unhesitating. He explained his own lowly station, reasoning that his principal would only resort to such a self-debasing act as a form of punishment if he were truly furious. Knowing Ethan, this was his honest belief. In his world, the chasm between them was insurmountable. His training had stripped him of his personhood, molding him into a weapon and a shield. He was not meant to have his own thoughts, his own feelings beyond loyalty. Julian could use him, sacrifice him, but he could never treat him as an equal. To be treated as a person was a violation of his code. And for a shadow who failed his purpose, the only end was abandonment. The word echoed in Julian's mind. Abandonment. Before he could grasp the thought, hurried footsteps sounded outside. In a flash, Ethan was at the door, poised to neutralize any threat. His first and only priority had always been Julian's life. Julian let him be. A soft knock came, followed by the anxious voice of the night guard. "Sir, there's trouble. The feds are raiding the Hawthorne apothecary." Julian's brow furrowed. The Hawthorne? How could that be? He signaled to Ethan, who opened the door and vanished from sight. The guard entered, kneeling, and Julian demanded to know what happened. The guard reported that one of their own, a man named Frankie, had escaped and reported that the feds had a warrant, claiming the apothecary was a front for selling Seraphim. Seraphim. The name of the forbidden drug struck Julian with a jolt of disbelief. The Hawthorne apothecary was, on the surface, a legitimate pharmacy, but in reality, it was one of his discreet hubs for political dealings. It wasn't his most prominent front. In his previous life, it had operated without incident until the very end. A deep sense of foreboding settled over him. He waved the guard away. As soon as the man was gone, Ethan reappeared silently at his side. The sudden crisis left no time for contemplation. Julian issued an immediate order for Ethan to destroy all connections between his operations and the apothecary, and to do it fast. As Ethan turned to leave, Julian stopped him. He paused. Even now, with things spiraling, he couldn't help but glance at the bar above Ethan's head. It had turned a deep gray, a stark slash of color against Ethan's dark tactical gear. Julian walked up to him, his gaze complicated. He had only just gotten him back. The memory of Ethan's blood was still fresh. More than any power struggle, he just wanted to talk to him. But he couldn't. The apothecary raid was deeply unsettling, and Ethan was the only one he could trust. Ethan watched him, waiting. Julian opened his mouth, wanting to say, "Forget it. Let's just run away from all this." But all that came out was a sigh. He raised a hand and, catching him off guard, touched the exposed skin of his neck. As expected, Ethan's body went rigid, but he didn't move. Julian's eyes flickered upwards. The color bar was once again tinged with pink. He felt the warmth spreading under his fingertips, the distinct thrum of Ethan's pulse. As the pink deepened, the pulse beneath his thumb quickened. He was beginning to understand the pattern. It was just a terrible time to test his theory by pressing the man onto the bed for a kiss. Ethan's voice was tight when he asked if he had further orders. Julian slid his hand away, smoothly adjusting the collar of Ethan's shirt. He didn't keep him any longer, only telling him to come back soon and to be safe. After Ethan left, Julian stood in the dim room for a long time before letting out a slow breath. Not even an hour into his new life, and the unexpected had already happened. The old senator, his father, was obsessed with legacy projects and his health was failing, leaving his children to fight over the scraps of power. He picked up a pen and wrote a name on a piece of paper, Ronan. Then his other brother, Caleb. Of the senator's children, only 3 remained. Caleb had no interest in the political arena, having long since moved to his estate on the coast, content with his art and a quiet life. The real contest was between Ronan and himself. He frowned, then wrote Seraphim below the names. The drug had been outlawed since the early days of the Republic. It was highly addictive, its legacy a dark chapter in the history books he'd read. A previous era had seen it decimate the population, from the wealthy elite to the common worker, people selling their homes, their families, for a single dose. The drug induced a short-lived euphoria before corroding the body from the inside out, leading to total organ failure. Its spread had brought economic collapse, rampant disease, and societal breakdown. That was why it was banned. In his previous life, he couldn't recall Seraphim ever resurfacing. He couldn't be sure the substance found in the apothecary was the real thing, but its appearance was a deviation from the timeline he knew. He stared at the words, his frown deepening. Was the raid a coincidence, or was he being targeted? A chilling thought occurred to him. If he could be reborn, perhaps, so could Ronan. The sense of foreboding intensified. At dawn, Ethan slipped back through the window, carrying the chill of the morning with him. He reported that the apothecary's manager and an employee named Frankie had been taken into federal custody. He had been too late to intervene, but had destroyed everything else linking the place to Julian's network. Julian nodded, telling him he'd done well, and motioned for him to rise as he burned the paper with his notes over a candle. He asked if it was confirmed to be Seraphim. The answer would dictate his next move. Ethan's expression was grim. He confirmed that after securing the scene, he had made inquiries with a contact at the bureau. It was indeed Seraphim. Julian's heart sank, though he wasn't surprised. He had already sensed this life would not be a simple replay. He had thought he'd have the upper hand, but now it seemed he might have returned too late, leaving him at a disadvantage. He asked if Ethan had discovered how the drug got into the apothecary. Ethan replied swiftly that it was the employee, Frankie, who had been dealing it on the side. Customers used a code in their prescription orders, and Frankie would slip the Seraphim into their packages. No one else at the apothecary knew. The information made Julian's temple throb. Fronts like the apothecary operated as legitimate businesses, with only a core few aware of their true purpose. He couldn't remember if a Frankie had existed in his past life. Logically, even if Ronan was reborn, he shouldn't have known about his connection to the Hawthorne. So why was it the one to be hit? He couldn't convince himself it was a coincidence. He rubbed his forehead, a headache beginning to form. Before he could think it through, a summons arrived from his father. He sighed. There were no coincidences. He didn't know who was behind it, but they clearly knew his secrets, were fully prepared, and weren't giving him any time to react. He had no choice but to change into a suit and prepare to go. He had to face what was coming. He just hoped his second chance would be about getting closer to Ethan, but they hadn't even spent an hour alone together. He cast a melancholic look at Ethan, who stood silently in the shadows, his back straight, his face an emotionless mask. He was like a merciless blade, all sharp edges and no human warmth. But this time, Julian noticed the bar above his head had turned a deep, inky blue-black. He paused. The color seemed to shift with Ethan's emotions. It hadn't changed when he reported on the drug, but now that Julian was being summoned, it had. Julian's gaze shifted from the bar to Ethan's eyes. "Ethan," he asked softly, "are you worried about me?" Ethan's eyes flickered. After a moment of silence, he admitted that he was. With the situation unclear, he was concerned his principal might be framed. He then dropped to one knee, a gesture of atonement. It was his failure, he stated, for not discovering Frankie's dealings and putting Julian in danger. "It's not your fault," Julian said, a mix of exasperation and fondness in his voice. He bent down and pulled him up. "If someone is setting a trap for us, they wouldn't make it easy to find." He knew Ethan was blaming himself for not seeing the signs, for not identifying the mastermind. Their biggest problem was their undeniable link to the apothecary, making it nearly impossible to prove their innocence regarding the seraphim. Ethan saw any threat to Julian as his personal responsibility, and this one was a dagger pointed at their throats. But Julian couldn't tell him about being reborn. If Ronan had also returned, and much earlier, it was plausible he could have uncovered the connection. With that knowledge, framing Julian was simple. Ethan, for all his skills, was no match for someone who had already lived through it all once. He saw the color bar shift from blue-black to pure black. He clapped Ethan on the shoulder, changing the subject. "Speaking of which, can you promise me something?" Ethan's focus shifted, a hint of confusion on his face as he replied that Julian need only command it. Julian's lips curved into a slight smile. "From now on, whatever you're thinking, whether you're worried about me or blaming yourself, don't keep it inside. Tell me directly." He watched the undisguised shock on Ethan's face. "I want to know your emotions, your thoughts, especially the ones that are for me. I like them." The word was a choked sound, barely escaping Ethan's lips before he caught himself. The bar above his head exploded into a brilliant, saturated pink. And even without that cheat sheet, Julian could see the profound emotional turmoil Ethan was experiencing. A flush crept up his neck, staining the tips of his ears red. It was the first time in 2 lifetimes that he had ever seen Ethan display anything resembling shyness. It was fascinating. A few direct words were all it took to dismantle his stoic composure. What had he been doing all last life, suffering in silence? He felt a pang of regret for their tragic end, followed by a wave of gratitude for this second chance, and for the strange ability that revealed Ethan's hidden heart. On the surface, Ethan was still a mask of indifference, but Julian could now perceive the bewildered helplessness underneath. The man who wouldn't flinch while facing down a dozen armed enemies was flustered by a single sentence. Julian had thought it was only loyalty, so he had never dared to show his own affection. If he had known this was possible, what was a little lost pride? His heart softened. Ethan seemed to be rebooting, about to kneel again, but Julian caught him. "Sir," he began, but Julian cut him off, fearing another round of self-recrimination. "My father is waiting. Can't be late. We'll talk when I get back." He straightened his suit, speaking with renewed authority. "You won't accompany me. I suspect Ronan is behind this. I need you to surveil his estate, see if you can find any link between him and Seraphim." "Yes, sir." Ethan was already back to his professional self, all emotion suppressed, ready to execute the command flawlessly. Julian took a deep breath, pushing down his own unease, and walked out the door. He expected the worst, but when he entered his father's study, he was still unprepared. Besides his father and Ronan, there was someone else. Someone who should have died last year, shortly after the family's heir apparent. His older sister, Eleanor, sat there, watching him enter with a faint, unreadable smile. Their eyes met for a fleeting moment before Julian tore his gaze away, schooling his features to hide the storm inside him. He walked to the center of the room and bowed his head respectfully to his father. The study was silent, the air thick with tension. As he knelt, his heart hammered against his ribs. Suddenly, a heavy crystal tumbler flew past his head, shattering against the floor beside his knee. The sharp crack broke the silence. He flinched as whiskey splashed onto his trousers. From the large mahogany desk, his father's racking cough echoed through the room. "You audacious fool," his father rasped. "Have you no shame?" The patriarch's fury was a physical force. Julian bowed lower, feigning confusion and protesting that he didn't understand. His father slammed a hand on the desk, shouting that the Hawthorne apothecary was his. Wasn't it? That it was openly selling Seraphim, and that he must be planning a rebellion. The accusation hung in the air, so his connection was exposed. Ethan's efforts had been too slow. He instinctively glanced at Ronan, but surprisingly, his brother wasn't gloating. His expression was dark, almost sullen. A strange feeling pricked at Julian, but he had no time to decipher it. His father's coughing drew his attention back. The immediate priority was to clear his name. He bowed again, pressing his forehead to the floor 3 times, each impact sending a jolt through him. Then he straightened up, his voice ringing with conviction. He acknowledged that he had funded the apothecary, but claimed it was only to provide affordable medicine for the poor. He swore he would never be involved with a substance like Seraphim and begged his father to see his innocence. He met the old man's furious gaze without flinching. Whatever the setup, his only play was absolute denial. His father was still coughing, and Julian noticed he looked much frilier than he remembered from this time in his past life. An aide rushed to his side, patting his back. No one spoke. Julian repeated his plea for justice. "Innocence?" His father choked out, glaring at him. "The feds found the drug and arrested the dealer. The man confessed. Even the Coleman boy died from Seraphim he bought there. It's your establishment. Are you telling me you knew nothing? The Coleman boy died from Seraphim. Not a simple overdose." Julian's blood ran cold. He knew with absolute certainty that Ronan had been reborn too. In this life, before his own return, the initial reports Ethan had gathered must have been the same as last time. Only someone reborn would know what they were looking for and plant a different trail. But why go to such trouble? If the boy bought the drug from the Hawthorne, Ronan could have just exposed that fact directly to crush him. Unless he was trying to hide the boy's true cause of death. He was trying to hide the very existence of Seraphim. Julian's eyes narrowed. If Ronan was involved in the Seraphim trade, he wouldn't be the one to expose it. He glanced at Ronan again. His brother's face was indeed a mask of grim frustration. These thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. He immediately declared his innocence again, stating that as an investor, he was not involved in the day-to-day operations and knew nothing of medicine. He punctuated the statement with 2 more resounding bows to the floor, pleading for his father to believe him and investigate the conspiracy to frame him. He had made his stand. Now he had to weather the storm. Just then, an unexpectedly calm female voice cut through the tension. "Father, please calm down. You know Julian's character better than anyone. There may be a misunderstanding." All eyes turned to Eleanor. Julian was taken aback. He couldn't fathom why she would defend him. Ronan sneered from the side, remarking that with witnesses and evidence, there was nothing to misunderstand. Eleanor shot Julian a look, then said casually, as if it were a minor detail, "From what I understand, the dealer, this Frankie, was only hired at the Hawthorne in February." She seemed to emphasize the month. February. The word snagged in Julian's mind. He realized Eleanor was helping him, though for what purpose, he didn't know. He quickly scanned his memory of that time. A flash of insight struck him. He declared that early in the year, he had been sent by his father on a tour of the Northern Territories. In February, a blizzard had trapped him there, cutting him off from all communication for nearly a month, a fact his father was well aware of. As he said it, the fury on his father's face subsided slightly. Julian felt a small measure of relief, but his suspicion of Eleanor grew. How did she know when Frankie was hired? "How would you know that, Eleanor?" Ronan voiced the same question, his tone accusatory. "Are you involved in this?" Eleanor simply smiled. It was a coincidence, really. She looked at Julian. "Our great-aunt was ill last year, and after she recovered, she had some lingering ailments. Grandmother was worried and had the family physician see her. The prescription required long-term medication, and not wanting to bother the family staff, she had it filled at a local place. It just happened to be the Hawthorne." She smiled faintly at Julian. "I had no idea it was one of your projects, little brother. If I had, I would have asked you for a family discount." Her tone was light, unaffected by the room's oppressive atmosphere. Julian returned a polite, superficial smile. He told her she was too kind, and promised that once his name was cleared, he would ensure her great-aunt's medication was provided free of charge. His father's expression had completely calmed. He nodded, confirming that he had heard about the great-aunt's illness, lending credence to Eleanor's story. Ronan's face darkened. Eleanor continued smoothly. "There was some small confusion when Frankie was hired. My great-aunt mentioned it to grandmother as a funny story when she visited. I happened to be there and overheard. It was definitely in February. You can ask grandmother." Eleanor would not lie about something so easily verified. His father's expression grew thoughtful. If that were true, Julian really might be ignorant of the matter. Ronan wasn't convinced. He argued that Julian could have arranged for Frankie's hiring before he left in February. But Eleanor countered him effortlessly. According to her, Frankie had been in his hometown in Silver Creek County until early February and had only just arrived in the capital. Julian was already gone by then. Silver Creek County? His father interjected suddenly. All heads turned. The pieces were shifting in a direction Julian hadn't anticipated. Eleanor confirmed it, adding that Frankie's thick regional accent had caused some amusing misunderstandings when he first arrived, which was why the story had stuck in her great-aunt's mind. "That settles it," his father said, his tone turning cold. According to the Bureau's intelligence, the primary distribution channel for Seraphim originates in Silver Creek County. The air in the room grew heavy. Silver Creek was remote, far from the capital, yet it was supplying a sophisticated drug market. that required raw materials, production facilities, secure distribution lines, and powerful protection. Who had the resources and the audacity to run such an operation? The implications were staggering, bordering on treason. Julian quickly calculated the new political landscape. He was now certain more than one person had been reborn, and the game had changed. He didn't know how much of a head start Ronan had, or what other schemes he had in motion. And now there was Eleanor. He was on the back foot. Staying in the capital to fight them seemed like a losing battle. Besides, he didn't want this life anymore. He just wanted to get Ethan out. If that was the goal, then perhaps leaving the capital was the answer. The thought solidified, and he began to plot a way out. Fleeing would look like an admission of guilt. Faking his death would allow his enemies to pin the entire Seraphim operation on him posthumously. He couldn't live as a wanted man, which meant he had to engage with the Seraphim case. He scanned the faces in the room. Someone had to investigate, but if the mastermind was a high-ranking official, no ordinary agent could touch them. With the Patriarch's health failing and the factions in turmoil, choosing an impartial investigator would be nearly impossible. And his father, he looked exhausted, leaning heavily on the desk for support. Julian clenched his fists. It was time for a gamble. He broke the silence. "Father, I volunteer to lead the investigation in Silver Creek County." Every eye in the room fixed on him. He knelt straight, his voice steady. "Seraphim is a threat to the nation. We cannot ignore the lessons of history. Furthermore, I wish to prove my own innocence." His father watched him, his expression unreadable, but Julian pressed on, his voice ringing with passion. "Since the founding of the Republic, Seraphim has been a banned substance. After a century, the public has forgotten its dangers. The people behind this are exploiting that ignorance, preying on the vulnerable for profit. This isn't the work of one or two people. The raw material, the vine reed, requires massive cultivation. The network is vast. This is an attack on the very fabric of our society." He knew everyone in the room understood the gravity of the situation. He saw a flash of venom in Ronan's eyes as he spoke. "So it is you. The history books tell us of families destroyed, of cities turning on themselves for a single dose. I will not see that happen again. Those who would sacrifice the lives of our citizens for their own greed have crossed a line. You taught us that with privilege comes responsibility, that our family's duty is to the people. I will not stand by while they are deceived and destroyed. Please, Father, allow me to go to Silver Creek, to uncover the truth and bring the perpetrators to justice. For you and for the country." "Absolutely not," Ronan snapped, standing abruptly. He addressed their father, arguing that Julian was still a suspect and couldn't be trusted with the investigation. On the contrary, Eleanor inserted smoothly, once again siding with Julian. "I believe this proves his innocence. He would be the perfect person for the job." Ronan, his face flushed with anger, turned on her. "How can you be so sure? Even if he was away in February, they could have corresponded. Why are you so quick to defend him? Are you two in this together?" Eleanor gave a cold laugh. "If Julian was colluding with someone from Silver Creek, wouldn't you be the first to know, Ronan? After all," she paused, letting the words hang in the air, "the governor of that entire region is a cousin of your mother's, isn't he?" A flicker of understanding dawned on Julian. The governor was one of Ronan's key political allies. It would be impossible for a rival like Julian to set up a massive drug operation in Ronan's territory without him knowing. Suddenly, Ronan was in a much more precarious position than he was. Julian felt a grim satisfaction, even as he was being played like a pawn. Ronan paled slightly. What are you trying to say, Eleanor? Nothing at all, she said, smoothing her dress. Just that you seem to be very familiar with the region. That's enough. Their father roared, silencing them. He tried to say more, but the outburst sent him into another coughing fit. When he recovered, his energy was spent. He looked at his two squabbling children with disgust. A senator's children, bickering like toddlers with no proof. It's shameful. He then turned his gaze to Julian. Ronan is right. You haven't been cleared. I'll choose someone else for the investigation. He allowed his aide to help him to his feet. All of you are reckless, unable to even manage your own people. Go home and reflect on your failures. Ronan and Eleanor murmured their assent. But Julian wasn't finished. He gritted his teeth. Father, if you don't trust me, I will offer proof of my sincerity. I will surrender my control of the network. The patriarch stopped dead in his tracks. When Julian returned to his apartment, Ethan was not yet back. He shed his suit jacket and downed 2 glasses of water, letting out a long, slow breath. Not long after Ethan returned, his first words an urgent question about why he had given up control of the family's private intelligence network. Julian saw the deep blue of the color bar above his head. It was the first time Ethan had ever questioned one of his decisions. The sight of him made the tension drain from Julian's shoulders. He smiled and beckoned him closer. As soon as Ethan was within reach, Julian pulled him into an embrace. He felt Ethan's body stiffen for a moment before relaxing. It was a brief, grounding hug. When he pulled away, he looked at the bar, now a swirl of blue and pink, and asked with a grin how he'd heard so quickly. Ethan, still tense, replied that he had overheard it at Ronan's estate. Julian nodded, saying they'd discuss it later, and asked what he had found. Ethan immediately switched back into professional mode, reporting that there was nothing unusual at Ronan's property, nothing related to Seraphim. There was only one oddity. For the past 2 years, Ronan had been sending a group of dancers to a rural villa every 3 months. They had previously dismissed it as a private matter, but this time Ethan had found a roster. He explained gravely that it was always the same group of people, just in different disguises, and Ronan never actually went to see them. Julian's brow furrowed. That was undeniably strange. But another detail stood out. You said this started 2 years ago? Yes, 2 years. So, Ronan had been reborn for 2 years. Julian cursed internally. No wonder his plans were so intricate. If not for Ethan's formidable skills, Ronan would have had him killed long ago. He took a deep breath. Keep an eye on that villa. Find out what he's up to. He then changed the subject, his voice more contemplative. Tell me about Eleanor. Has she always been involved in politics? Ethan answered without hesitation, confirming that while the princess did not publicly engage in state affairs, their intelligence indicated she maintained a network of private contacts. Julian processed this. The Eleanor he remembered from his last life had been frail, confined to the family estate, and had died unmarried without ever touching the world of power. But this Eleanor was a player. A bold idea began to form. If he and Ronan could be reborn, why not Eleanor? And what if she had returned even earlier than Ronan? He replayed the scene in the study. Ronan's reaction to the mention of Seraphim had been one of genuine anger. If he was running the operation in Silver Creek, he would be the last person to want it exposed. And Eleanor, while using their great-aunt as a pretext, knew far too much about Frankie's background. What if the whole thing was a setup to make him and Ronan destroy each other? He let out a cold laugh. Her defense of him in the study wasn't to help him, but to fan the flames between him and Ronan. She likely never imagined he would surrender the network and choose self-exile. Leaving the capital meant forfeiting his position in the race. It was a signal that he was withdrawing. Whether they believed him or not, his absence would force them to focus their energies on each other. Realizing he had thwarted her plan brought him a sliver of satisfaction. He instructed Ethan to have his people watch Eleanor closely and gather comprehensive intelligence on her. Ethan paused, asking why Julian didn't want him to do it personally. "There's no time," Julian said simply. "We leave for Silver Creek in 3 days." He explained what had happened in his father's study. Ethan listened in silence. When Julian finished, the color bar above his head, a mix of blue with a new hint of black, reflected his turmoil. He couldn't stop himself from asking why Julian would surrender the network, calling it his lifeline. Julian knew Ethan was upset by the accusation against him, but more than that, he was worried for his safety. Reading the colors made his own mood lighten. He met Ethan's gaze, a slight smile playing on his lips, but didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked Ethan, "It's been 15 years since we first met. You've been with me through war zones and assassination attempts. You've never had a moment's peace. Do you regret it?" "Never," Ethan said without a thought. The unwavering certainty in his voice pleased Julian. His smile deepened. He explained that their restless life was a consequence of his ambition for that seat of power, and that everything Ethan did was in service of that goal. He looked at him seriously, his smile fading. "What if I told you I don't want it anymore?" Ethan's reply was just as swift. "Whatever you want is what we will do." Even though he expected it, the steadfast support touched him. He gave a soft, wry laugh, telling him he should at least pretend to think about it. He elaborated that if he won, Ethan's years of sacrifice would be rewarded with titles, freedom, or at least a peaceful life. But if he quit, they would have to leave the capital, perhaps even the country. All his sacrifices would be for nothing, and he might have to spend the rest of his life on the run. He asked if that didn't seem selfish. He meant every word. Ethan frowned, but not in thought, more in confusion. He asked what Julian was talking about, stating that he had never felt his life was difficult. He met Julian's gaze, his eyes clear and honest. He said it wasn't selfish. As long as he was with Julian, any life was a good life. Julian's heart skipped a beat. Ethan spoke the words without a trace of shyness or artifice, as if he were unaware of their weight, of the impact they had. It was so direct it was almost innocent. If it weren't for the hint of pink bleeding into the colors above his head, Julian wouldn't have dared to read anything more into it. He suddenly realized that Ethan might not understand love, but every word he spoke, every action he took, was a pure, unvarnished expression of his soul. An emotion so fundamental he himself couldn't name it, but it was his entire, unblemished truth. Julian's lips trembled. He couldn't help it. He lunged forward, wrapping his arms around him. Ethan didn't flinch. This time, his body wasn't rigid. Julian even felt a hand tentatively rise to hover near his back. He closed his eyes, overwhelmed. After a long moment, he spoke, his voice hoarse. "Surrendering the network was the only way Father would let me leave." He buried his face in the crook of Ethan's neck, taking a deep breath before letting go. The family's influence over that intelligence apparatus was legacy, not leverage. His uncle still ran the operational side. As long as he was there, the asset was safe. The physical control was a token. He looked at Ethan, his expression serious. "This was the only way, and I meant what I said. I'm done with this fight. If we can, after this is over, we're not coming back." "Okay." Ethan agreed without hesitation. Julian smiled. He knew that once he offered up the network, the truth about the Seraphim became secondary to his father. His departure was a transaction. But that didn't mean he was abandoning the fight against the drug. His speech in the study wasn't just a performance. The danger was real. He felt a responsibility to stop it, not for power but for conscience. He gave Ethan a few more instructions for their departure. With only 3 days, they had to move quickly. As Ethan turned to leave, Julian caught his arm. "Wait," he said, his tone exasperated. "You haven't rested since yesterday. Sleep first." Ethan tried to argue that he wasn't tired, but Julian shot him a look. "You're not, but I am." He walked to the bed. "Come help me with my clothes." After Ethan had removed his outer layers, Julian lay down and patted the empty space beside him. "Get in. Sleep." Ethan froze, for once not obeying instantly. "Sir, that's against protocol," he said stiffly. Julian propped himself up on an elbow, raising an eyebrow. "My word is the protocol. Or is some rulebook more important than my command?" "No. Never," Ethan denied quickly. Defeated, he lay down on the outer edge of the bed, as stiff as a board, hands crossed over his chest, staring at the ceiling. Julian couldn't help but laugh. He reached out and covered Ethan's eyes with his hand. He felt the flutter of eyelashes against his palm, saw Ethan's breath catch. He softened his voice. "Close your eyes." A moment later, he felt the lashes lower. He didn't remove his hand. "Ethan, I know there's a lot you don't understand. It's okay. I'll teach you. But I need you to know one thing." His gaze was filled with an unrestrained affection. "You are the most important person in my life. I will always trust you unconditionally. I need you to trust me, too. Even if one day you break every rule, even if you do something you think is unforgivable, believe me, I will never abandon you." His voice dropped to its gentlest tone yet. "So stop being so tense. Just sleep." After a long while, he felt the rigid body beneath his hand finally begin to relax. 3 days later, they left the capital. Halfway to their destination, rumors of an outbreak in Silver Creek County began to circulate. The closer they got, the more prevalent the stories became. Fearing the Seraphim epidemic was already out of control, Julian pushed them to ride faster, arriving in record time. The atmosphere at the town entrance was immediately different. Silver Creek was not a wealthy place, but it shouldn't have been this desolate. The gates were guarded by deputies, strictly checking everyone who entered. Posing as federal marshals with official orders, they were allowed entry. The first thing they saw was a makeshift quarantine ward. This was odd. Quarantine zones were usually set up far outside city limits. To have one in the center of town suggested an extreme emergency. Something was wrong. Ignoring a deputy's call, Julian walked towards the ward with Ethan. As they approached, they heard an argument. A woman's voice, sharp with frustration, insisted, "Their symptoms don't match any known plague. Your treatments are killing them." Julian saw 2 women arguing with a guard. As the guard moved to shove one of them, Julian signaled Ethan, who moved in a blur, restraining the man's arm. Julian followed, hearing the guard shout, "Who the hell are you? Let me go." He flashed his fake badge. "You." "Marshal's Service. We're here on a federal investigation." The guard's face went pale. Julian glanced at the 2 women, who appeared unharmed, then fixed the guard with a cold stare. "Is this how you conduct official business in Silver Creek? Assaulting unarmed women?" The guard stammered an apology. Julian nodded to Ethan, who dislocated the man's shoulder with a flick of his wrist and tossed him aside. Amidst the man's screams, Julian turned to the women with a gentler expression, asking if they were all right. The 2, who looked remarkably alike, identical twins, assured him they were fine, and thanked him. He offered a few more words of comfort, then, remembering what he'd overheard, asked what they meant about the illness not being a plague. The sisters exchanged a hesitant look. Just as one was about to speak, a hearty voice interrupted them. "Marshal, so glad you could make it." A man in a sheriff's uniform hurried towards them, a posse in tow. Sheriff Lee Miller. Miller was all smiles and apologies for not being there to greet them personally. Julian played along, exchanging pleasantries. After the introductions, Miller gestured towards the ward. "This area is dangerous, Marshal. We can talk at my office." As he led them away, Julian caught the eye of the twin sisters, giving them a subtle shake of his head. They understood, falling silent. It was a relief. If the plague was a fabrication by the sheriff, their protests could have put them in mortal danger. At the sheriff's office, Miller dismissed everyone but his chief deputy. He then adopted a conspiratorial tone, asking if it was true they were here about Seraphim. He launched into a speech about his years of dedicated service, insisting he would have known if a major drug operation was running in his county. He grasped Julian's hand, his expression earnest, claiming it must be a conspiracy to frame him and begging Julian to clear his name with the government. As he held Julian's hand, a thick envelope was pressed into his palm. Julian slipped it into his pocket without breaking eye contact. He assured the sheriff he would conduct a thorough investigation, then added pointedly that the higher-ups believed it was likely just a few small-time dealers, nothing that would reflect badly on the local authorities. He saw relief flood Miller's face. He smiled knowingly. A man with a county to run couldn't be expected to catch every petty criminal. He was sure the senator would understand. Miller readily agreed, promising his full cooperation in catching those few bad apples. That evening, Miller hosted a lavish dinner in their honor. After several drinks, Julian casually brought up the plague rumors, mentioning he'd heard nothing about it back in the capital. Miller waved a dismissive hand, assuring him it was under control. He explained that a number of people had suddenly fallen ill with high fevers, and local doctors, unable to identify the cause, had suspected a new type of plague. As a precaution, he had quarantined them and locked down the town to prevent a potential spread. He was just waiting for a definitive diagnosis before officially reporting it. It was a plausible story, delivered with a politician's practiced sincerity. The next day, after making a show of staying in their hotel, Julian and Ethan slipped out in disguise and headed for the quarantine ward. The number of guards had doubled. As they scouted for a way in, Ethan pointed towards the edge of town. The sheriff's deputy, a man named Peters, was leaving on foot. "Let's follow him," Julian decided instantly. They trailed Peters to a derelict church on the outskirts of town. A few other men, dressed as local farmers and carrying bundles of what looked like herbs, met him there. From their hiding spot, Julian overheard a fragment of conversation about the quality of the vine reed. It was the primary ingredient for Seraphim. "Go," he whispered to Ethan. "Take them alive." Ethan moved like a ghost. The sound of a brief struggle erupted from within. But as Julian entered, a cold premonition washed over him. A blade sliced through the air where he'd just been standing. "Sir," Ethan yelled, already engaged with several men. Julian dodged another attack, getting a clear look at his assailant. He was wearing the deputy's uniform, but it wasn't Peters. It was a trap. Miller had known they wouldn't stay put. He'd played them. The fake deputy and the other men suddenly broke off their attack and fled towards the entrance. As they passed, they triggered something. A fine, sweet-smelling powder filled the air. Ethan tackled Julian, shielding him with his body and pressing a hand over his mouth, but it was too late. A numbness spread through Julian's limbs. His lungs burned. He was poisoned. He shoved at Ethan, urging him to get them out. They burst from the church into another ambush. Ethan placed himself between Julian and their attackers. Julian stumbled against a pillar, coughing up a spray of blood. He saw an opening and one of the men slashed Ethan across the shoulder. Panic flared in Julian's chest. Just as another attacker circled around to strike him from behind, two figures darted out from the nearby woods. It was the twin sisters. One of them forced a small, bittersweet pill into his mouth, explaining it was a potent antidote made from snow root. The other took his pulse, instructing him to use his energy to circulate the medicine. As the antidote took effect, the pain and numbness receded. He could hear the sounds of the last attacker falling. Ethan was at his side in an instant, his voice tight with worry. Julian stopped him from carrying him, assuring him he was fine. He then turned to the sisters, offering his profound thanks and promising to repay the debt. They humbly dismissed it as returning a favor. But Ethan, in a rare display of outward emotion, bowed deeply to them, thanking them for saving his principal's life. The deep blue of his color bar was practically glowing. Julian's heart ached. Noticing Ethan was ignoring his own wound, he asked the sisters if they could tend to it. As one of the twins, Clara, led Ethan aside to bandage his shoulder, the other, Iris, remained with Julian. She explained that they were physicians who specialized in epidemic diseases. The patients in the quarantine ward, she said, showed none of the typical signs. Their symptoms were more akin to madness. They had seen the discarded prescriptions, all for a plague they clearly didn't have. That was why they had been arguing with the guard. Hearing her description, Julian knew. The patients weren't suffering from a plague. They were Seraphim addicts in withdrawal. The quarantine, the lockdown, it was all an elaborate scheme by Miller to hide the town's rampant drug trade from his investigation. The sisters then revealed why they were there. A woman from a nearby village, Oak Ridge, had sought them out. Her husband was exhibiting the same symptoms, and she had sworn on her life it was not a plague. It seemed the villagers knew the truth. Perhaps Julian thought they were the ones growing the vine reed. He decided they would go to Oak Ridge immediately. On the path to the village, Julian explained his suspicions to Ethan. They walked side by side. Lost in thought, Julian stumbled. Ethan caught him, his grip firm, and offered to carry him. The blue of his color bar was a deep, anxious shade. He thought Julian was still weak from the poison. The man was bleeding from his own shoulder but was only concerned for him. Julian thought of all the scars Ethan carried for his sake. This time had to be different. He leaned in close and whispered, "If you carry me, won't your shoulder hurt?" Ethan insisted it was a minor wound. "But it hurts me to see it," Julian murmured, his words true. He saw the red creep up Ethan's neck again, saw the pink flood the color bar. He took Ethan's hand and pressed it to his own chest. "Your heart is racing," Ethan noted, his voice low and gravelly. He then added, with genuine concern, "Are you sure the poison is gone?" Julian sighed, a mix of amusement and exasperation. He told him he was fine, healthier even, thanks to the antidote. He then looked Ethan in the eye, his tone serious. "Ethan, I need you to treat yourself with the same care you treat me. That's not an order. It's a request." Ethan stood frozen for a moment, the colors above his head swirling in confusion before he gave a slow, uncertain nod. They arrived at Oak Ridge to find it eerily silent. A single house showed signs of life. As they approached, a man burst out, his face gaunt, his eyes bloodshot. He was followed by a weeping, bruised woman. Clara whispered the woman's name, Anna. The man, David, was clearly in withdrawal. He lunged at his wife, but Ethan intercepted him, pinning him down as he thrashed and screamed for his medicine, his seraphim. Anna sobbed that he was just feverish, but Julian saw the truth. He ordered Anna to get the drug, explaining that sudden withdrawal could kill him. Terrified, she retrieved a small pill. The moment David saw it, he broke free with inhuman strength, snatched the pill, and swallowed it. The violent frenzy subsided, replaced by a blissful, serene expression as he collapsed into a peaceful sleep. Later, when David awoke, lucid but broken, Julian confronted him. Under threat of law, David confessed everything. The poverty, the stranger who taught them to grow vine reed, the secret production camp in the hills where villagers manufactured the drug, and how they had started consuming the flawed batches themselves. He explained that recently, after a few of them became violently ill from withdrawal, Sheriff Miller's men had rounded up everyone from the production camp. They'd been told the men had a contagious disease and were being taken for treatment. They were the ones in the quarantine ward. The villagers were warned to keep silent, or their loved ones would never return. Anna fell to her knees, begging Julian to save her son, who had also been taken. As Julian tried to assure her they would help, the now lucid David, who had been listening in silent horror, suddenly moved. With a speed that no one could anticipate, he lunged for a pair of shears on a nearby table and plunged them into his own chest. There was no time. The scene exploded into chaos. Blood bloomed on David's shirt. The sisters rushed forward, desperately trying to staunch the wound. Anna screamed his name, collapsing to the floor. The world seemed to warp around Julian, the sight and sound distant and distorted. It was happening again. A man was dying because he couldn't act fast enough. A cold terror gripped him, the same one from that day with Ethan. His body began to tremble. A pair of hands gently covered his eyes, blocking the view. He felt Ethan's solid presence behind him, heard his low voice in his ear. "Don't look, sir." Through the fog, he heard David's last, ragged words to his wife, telling her he was no good, that he was a danger to her and their child, that they could only be free if he was dead. He heard Anna's wails grow louder, a sound of pure agony. A hand tightened on his shoulder, a grounding pressure. Ethan's voice was a low murmur against his ear, a shield against the horror. "Sir, it's not your fault." At that moment, Anna let out a primal scream of grief that seemed to tear the world apart. "David, David, David."